Here's the hard truth. Most IP fails not because it's weak, but because it wasn't created in the first place to be licensed. Here are the top 5 strategies for developing IP with the intent of it being licensed. The first strategy is simple but often overlooked. Design the IP around the way you intend on licensing it. Are you licensing it to a single strategic partner? Is the intent to grant multiple non-exclusive licenses? Do you intend to license it to international distributors or maybe OEM manufacturers? The structure of your IP should reflect the model in which you intend to license that IP. For example, if you plan on licensing IP across multiple industries, across a broad spectrum of companies, then having broad claim coverage is likely more important if you're filing a patent. Conversely, if you plan to license to a single strategic partner, your leverage may depend on scope and exclusivity in that instance. In that scenario, a licensee may be making significant investment in the products, in tooling, in manufacturing capability to be able to build that product that you're going to exclusively license them the ability to make. Those are the type of things that you'll only be able to command if you've thought about it on the front end in the drafting of your patent and how you've protected that IP. Too many companies build technology first and think about licensing later. Licensing is absolutely a business model. Your IP strategy should support whichever path you end up taking. Build your business IP licensing strategy first before going all in on how you're going to protect the IP. If you want to license IP, clean ownership is an absolute must. The entity that you are licensing your technology to will want to know you own the thing you're granting them a license to. Licensees conduct due diligence before they enter into license agreements. If ownership is in question, the deal slows down, it could collapse, it may not happen at all. Common mistakes include no invention assignment agreements or confidentiality agreements with your employees. This is a must and should just be standard best practices and build it into your HR processes. Have these folks sign these agreements on the front end so you aren't chasing them on the back end. The other mistake is having contractor agreements without IP assignment language. Oftentimes companies will think, I hired this independent contractor specifically to create this IP, so isn't it work for hire? Don't rely on the work for hire doctrine. Have it in black and white. Ink is cheap. It should say they assign the IP to you, full stop. The third mistake happens most often with startup companies when founders haven't assigned the IP that started the company to the company. It's just something that's often overlooked. One of those things has to be making sure the company owns the assets in order to move forward with the business, produce the products they produce, and protect its IP. The last mistake is not having clear ownership allocation in joint development agreements. Having the tough discussion about who's gonna own what down the road about the thing that may or may not end up getting developed is just a conversation that some folks don't wanna have. Please have those conversations so that when you end up developing that state-of-the-art technology, the game-changing technology that's gonna end up making a ton of money and sell a lot of products, that you clearly know who gets the benefit of owning that IP. The reason this is important is because once that IP is developed under that joint agreement, you're gonna wanna license it. If you cannot prove proper chain of title from the other party in a joint development agreement or the independent contractor to you, the value in that IP drops dramatically. Having a clean chain of title is absolutely an asset. Having sloppy documentation is absolutely a risk. It's very common to want to rush to registration, but make sure that you keep enforceability in mind. A patent that can't be enforced has very little value. A trademark that's not used consistently in commerce has vulnerabilities. A trade secret that's actually not kept secret has very little value. So when developing IP that you want to license, ask these questions. If a licensee stops paying royalties but continues to use the IP, what leverage do I really have if I want to enforce that IP? For patents, that means thinking about claim strength, prior art risk, international filing strategies. I want to make sure that I've got claim coverage, that I've got patent coverage in those jurisdictions in which it's valuable to those licensees. For trademarks, it means having consistent use and distinctiveness. Trademark strength is measured on a spectrum from weak to strong, the more distinctive a mark, the more value it has, the more protectable it is. And again, for trade secrets, that means keeping things confidential and not disclosing publicly. When it comes to licensees, one of the reasons they're taking a license, one of the reasons they're paying those earned royalties, those running royalties, those upfront payments and milestone payments, is because they can use the IP they license from you to stop their competitors from competing against them in the marketplace. But they can only do that if the IP is defensible. They also might be paying those fees to mitigate risk on their end. They want to make sure that the products they sell aren't infringing third-party IP. And by having that license, that risk doesn't exist. So here's the key takeaway. Licensed IP needs to be defensible. It can't just be something that's registered for the sake of registering. We frankly live in a global world where most companies, they aren't just selling in the United States. And when it comes to IP protection, it's usually jurisdiction specific. So if you've got a patent, if you've got a US patent, well, it's enforceable in the US. It's not enforceable in Canada. If you want to enforce it in Canada, you need to get a Canadian patent. Likewise in the trademark world as well. If a potential licensee operates in, let's say, Europe and Asia, and you only have a US patent or you only have protection in the US for that specific bucket of IP, well, your leverage is greatly reduced because you don't have coverage in the other countries in which they sell products. I will say international filing in of itself, specifically in the patent and trademark world, it's not an inexpensive endeavor. So you need to be strategic, you need to be thoughtful on the front end. Now this is where you need to apply some business intelligence. I wouldn't suggest filing everywhere in the world for all types of IP just in case you end up getting a licensee who sells stuff there. You want to be strategic, you want to be thoughtful, you want to see where potential licensees sell products, see where there's value, and file for protection in those areas, in those jurisdictions in which you can predict that there'll likely be value. And so using strategies to preserve the time frame in which you can file for patents or file for other type of IP protection without spending all the money it costs to file in all places around the world will serve a lot of value in making sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck and also getting the protection in the jurisdictions in which potential licensees will want that protection. Align your filing IP strategy around where you think or can predict future licensees will want to operate. Don't just think about where you are currently. Just because you're a US company doesn't mean the IP is only valuable in the US. Single asset licensing is frankly fragile. And when I say single asset, it means filing one patent one time and trying to find a licensee who's willing to pay a royalty for that single patent. A stronger strategy is to build a portfolio that creates dependency and leverage upon each other. This can include things like core patents plus improvement patents. It can also mean a complementary trademark registration that supports like a brand or expansion. It can also mean things like having copyrights in the software that does the thing that's covered in the patent application. It can also mean maintaining some elements as trade secrets. A layered portfolio increases the value of that overall IP simply because it ends up being more difficult for third parties to design around. They don't have to design around one single patent, one asset. No, they've got to navigate a minefield of IP that's in all these different types of buckets. And what that does for you as the owner and licensor is it puts you in a stronger negotiating position when you end up licensing that IP to a licensee. Additionally, as the owner of that IP, it creates optionality for you down the road. That portfolio may or may not be something you license all of it to exclusively to one party. It may be something that you can break up. It may be something where you have non-exclusive licenses here to a portion of the portfolio, field of use licenses here because one competitor's in one field and then a totally different field another competitor's in. You can split it up geographically depending on the market or the type of product. It creates an ability to not just license one thing one time, but the ability to license a portfolio across all these different platforms, which invariably it reduces risk in your ability to create revenue from that licensed IP, because even if one licensee ends up going the way of the dodo bird, you end up having royalty streams from a host of other licensees who are still tied into your sort of network portfolio. From a business perspective, portfolios create durability. Single filings create vulnerabilities. Here's the key takeaway. Build a layered protection of different types of IP that increases optionality for you and strengthens your negotiation position with third parties. Those are the top 5 strategies for developing IP that will be licensed. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.